Welcome everyone to Dropkick DiSKussions podcast presented by Sportskeeda. I'm your host Korey Gunz, and it is Survivor Series weekend. We've got the NXT WarGames show coming up, and then of course the big one on Sunday, Survivor Series itself. And I'm here to run down both cards with all of our predictions and analysis of each match with the one and only wrestling insider Tom Colohue. Tom, are you ready for this big weekend of wrestling we got coming up?
I am definitely ready. I've been waiting for Survivor Series for quite a while now. It always ends up being a highlight after the fact, and it's certainly been built all around a lot of massive brawls, hasn't it?
Yeah, a lot of invasions going on, it appears. Seems that every show somebody is coming in where maybe they're not supposed to be, and that's kind of been the build-up around the Survivor Series show itself, and then of course NXT TakeOver happening as well, where they've got their own issues to be dealt with in the WarGames, and then a couple of other singles matches we're going to talk about. Before we get into the cards themselves, I do want to ask you, and you just kind of mentioned it there, the build-up to Survivor Series and this whole weekend. I saw a tweet of yours earlier this week that mentioned that it seemed to be that the feeling on social media was that there wasn't a lot of excitement for this show going into it, and you seem to feel like you weren't really sure why, that you seem to feel like the build-up has been pretty good, and that there should be a sense of excitement around this show that maybe isn't shared with some of the other wrestling fans on social media and the like. So what do you contribute that to? What do you think of the build-up to the show? And if you do think there's a little bit of a malaise among wrestling fans heading into Sunday, what do you think has contributed to that?
Well, as it was with that particular tweet, I got quite a few responses. I think it numbered above 100 responses telling me that they were actually very excited. So I think a lot of that comes down to the people on my timeline. I obviously follow quite a lot of wrestling journalists, and I feel maybe the analysis coming from so many different views is quite negative, but they are paid to be skeptical and a bit more critical. I think there is a bit of malaise. I think there is a negativity around WWE lately, with Crown Jewel being such a recent thing, and the issues with Seth Rollins and The Fiend, as well as the comparisons to AEW, all of that being made. But there does seem to be some excitement. I at least managed to find quite a strong pocket of it who feel as excited as I do about this many unique and different matches.
Yeah, I think Survivor Series definitely has a chance to be a sleeper show this year for sure. But before we get to the big show, let's talk about NXT TakeOver WarGames, which will be happening Saturday, the night before Survivor Series. And it's got a card that I don't think can be slept on either. Let's start with, there's going to be two WarGames matches there, a women's and a men's. So let's start with the women's WarGames match. It's going to pit Shayna Baszler, Io, Bianca Belair, and a yet-to-be-named partner, so a mystery partner, going up against Rhea Ripley, Candice LeRae, Mia Yim, and Tegan Nox. What do you think of this match? Obviously, it's going to be 7 talented women, going to be adding in an 8th there. So what do you think of this match, and do you have any predictions about who that mystery partner for the Baszler team is going to be?
Well, I think after the ladder match last week, it was pretty clear that the mystery partner is going to be Kay Ray, the NXT UK Women's Champion, who made her appearance there and seems happily on the heel side. She's been involved ever so slightly. She obviously wrestled this week as well to make herself known. It'll be good for NXT UK to have her involved. There are a number of possibilities from this match, but with the heels having the drop at the beginning and knowing that Shayna Baszler will be going into Survivor Series, but I'm not sure how many of the others will. I think really this will be face heavy, but the heels will come out the winners on this one. Baszler will have a bit of a showcase, even though she probably won't take as many hits. But really, Io Shirai will be jumping off something high. Bianca Belair will be throwing some people around. Rhea Ripley's just going to dominate everything, and we all know that. But ultimately, if you look at the individual teams, I think even though Rhea Ripley is one of the strongest competitors you're going to have, one of the biggest names already after such a short time, the heels really do edge it on star power and on talent.
I don't think I can disagree with you there. I am looking forward to seeing how Shayna Baszler comes out in this match because I know we're going to talk about Survivor Series here in a minute, but I do think that she may be the one ended up taking the loss at Survivor Series in her triple threat match. So I do think, like you said, it would probably be important to keep her strong, at least in this match, so then maybe the potential loss the next night at Survivor Series won't do quite as much damage to her. So I agree with you. I think the heel side will probably take this one. Next match we want to talk about, probably the match that I'm looking forward to the most on the card, Finn Bálor against Matt Riddle. A one-on-one matchup, and not only just the matchup between the two men being, what I think could be a great match, but really this has got to be looked at as kind of the relaunch of Finn Bálor. He has been on NXT. He's had a little bit of an attitude switch, a character switch, kind of getting away from, the Demon King and kind of the things that he was related to on Raw and SmackDown kind of before he took a little bit of a sabbatical after SummerSlam. So I'm really interested to see how Finn Bálor is presented. What changes to his character might we see? Are we going to see new theme music? Are we going to see new attire? Just how far exactly are they going to take kind of this rebranding of Bálor? So, and also, like I said, just a great matchup that I think between two really good wrestlers, and should be a really good match. What's your take on this one, kind of the re-debut of Finn Bálor going up against Matt Riddle?
Well, after Balor's reinvention, as it were, after going away for a little while, coming back, having the new heel persona, this is definitely a match he needs to be winning. He was originally supposed to be against Johnny Gargano, of course. They've done quite a bit of rehearsal. The production, they laid out something that was quite exciting. I think they'll revisit that somewhere down the line. Whereas against Matt Riddle, neither of them have had that much time to really prepare. And I think that for this particular match, and when you get to someone like Matt Riddle, that could be a very good thing. I think he does not need rehearsal time. He's very good on the fly. The same can be said of Finn Bálor, because ultimately Bálor typically will hit very similar spots and moments. So I think back in NXT, he might be able to get out of that a little bit. It should definitely be a win. It's not the best for Matt Riddle, but it's Finn Bálor. You can take that loss. You can afford it. What comes next, hopefully, will be Johnny Gargano coming back, but I don't think they'll change too much of Finn Bálor. I think we've already had a significant enough change. Firstly, in being in NXT and then having the heel turn. So I don't think we'll see much changed for him. We'll have to see on the night, of course, but it should be quite an exciting one to at least see the different person that he has become.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see, heel Finn Bálor, kind of how he's presented and set the character traits that he exhibits in his match. And I agree with you. I'm taking Bálor in this one just because obviously I think he needs the win. You got to get him off strong and then send him off into a eventual feud with Johnny Gargano. So I think Bálor, I agree with you, takes the win here. Next, we'll have a triple threat match, and this weekend's going to be pretty heavy on triple threat matches between the two shows, but we've got a triple threat. This one's to determine the number one contender to the NXT Championship. The winner of this match will actually face Adam Cole the next night on Survivor Series for the NXT Championship. This match features Pete Dunne, Damian Priest, and Killian Dane. I'll go first on this one. I think, with Adam Cole being the NXT champion, I think you've got to go with a face here. So I think Pete Dunne gets the win here, and then we see Dunne versus Cole for the NXT championship, which should be a great match. What's your take on this one?
I suspect we're going to agree with quite a lot here, and this is another example of it. I think when it comes to a championship match at Survivor Series, which will ultimately probably be lost, but you can't guarantee it, you need that question. I think Pete Dunne's the only real choice of those three. I think we'll get a pretty solid match. I think Dunne was supposed to be winning the feud to begin with. And I think he's in a very good position to really go into Survivor Series as the strongest name with a legitimate feel of belonging to be there, and additionally a chance to take the title, if not belonging the title itself. So that feel of belonging to be in that spot, belonging where he is and belonging on that show. I can definitely see that. I think that's what we'll have, and I am very, very excited to see what those two men can make in the ring.
We'll take that a step further. Let's assume that Pete Dunne does win this triple threat match. What do you think his chances are of maybe taking the NXT title on Survivor Series as maybe a little bit of a surprise move? Do you think that could be a possibility?
I would actually say it is. I would initially have thought it would be impossible, but Pete Dunne could certainly become an NXT champion. And he could certainly become an NXT champion now, because even though Ciampa is, of course, waiting in the wings to take on Adam Cole, you don't need to rush that. And with the absence of Johnny Gargano, you could easily move Ciampa into a feud with Finn Balor next. So we could see Dunne take the title for a short time. Personally, I think it's still heavily weighted in Adam Cole's favour, but it's not impossible by any means.
Well, let's round it out with the men's WarGames match. It's going to pit the Undisputed Era, which obviously involves Adam Cole, who we just talked about, along with the rest of his Undisputed Era brethren, going up against Tommaso Ciampa, Keith Lee, Dijakovic, and another mystery partner to be determined later that we'll see on the show. What do you make of this one? Obviously, Adam Cole again is going to be, really all the Undisputed Era is going to be pulling double duty here. Going to be on the NXT show and then also the next night on Survivor Series. Ciampa's has just come back from injuries, got a lot of momentum, which you just alluded to when we talked about the previous match. And then of course you've got the mystery partner spot to be filled. Who do you see filling that spot for the face team here, and then how do you see this match playing out?
I think a Kushida or maybe Velveteen Dream could be coming back from injury soon. Tyler Bate obviously is also an option. I think he's probably the favourite at this point. There are a couple more opportunities. Kevin Owens isn't booked for the Survivor Series show, of course, so it'd be very interesting if he would appear. Is he on the Raw team?
Kevin,
Survivor Series, the Raw men's team.
Yes, Kevin Owens would. Now he was announced now, unless they've made a change, with that whole angle with Triple H from Raw and all of that. But I think, as far as I know, he's still announced as part of the Raw team.
So certainly that could be a change that works in their favour. And when you say double duty, there is of course an entire team in a WarGames match who are going to follow that up by all being part of these sort of championship showcase matches the next night. The Undisputed Era are very brave, and I hope they get paid very, very well, because they do not go halves, and they will be putting their bodies on the line heavily on this one. I think that sort of guarantees that they're going to be taking the loss, because they're all going to have that big showcase afterwards. And to be honest, they probably need to take the beating as quickly and smoothly as possible and just get out of Dodge as fast as they can. So I think the faces will be winning this one. I would put Tyler Bate as the favourite for the mystery partner at the moment, but it depends how far along we are with a Kushida or a Velveteen Dream return.
Yeah, this one is a little bit hard to call for me. I'm probably leaning towards the face team as well as you, just, kind of ending the show on a high note and giving those guys, a little bit of a rub there, especially with, Tommaso Ciampa and stuff being there and pushing that feud with Cole. So I'm going to lean that, although I will say, going back to our last, when we talked about the NXT Championship match at Survivor Series, I think it would be interesting if maybe the Undisputed Era pull out this win, but then we see them maybe drop their matches at Survivor Series, including the NXT Championship match, so Adam Cole maybe drops the title, and they could use that WarGames match kind of as an out or as an excuse for why, they lost their matches, because they had just been in a WarGames match the night previous, and so they could have maybe the surprise element or factor of having a new NXT champion being crowned, but obviously Adam Cole doesn't really lose much as far as his position, because he could use the WarGames as an out for an excuse of why he dropped the title, even if they wanted to just give Dunne, a month or two reign. So there's a lot of different angles that they could go here, or maybe I'm just overthinking it a little bit, so I'm going to roll with you on the face side of things here, but an Undisputed Era win would not shock me, I don't think.
That's fair. That's certainly one way to look at it. And I think it's nice that we at least aren't 100% all locked in on the same thing. Because takeovers are these wonderful things where they can be the most predictable results that you'll ever imagine, but you're still going to get a great show. Takeovers always seem to deliver. And when it comes to NXT, this is the first time they've had a rating higher than AEW. They're going to need a great takeover and a great Survivor Series in order to bring fans back. What we're going to see, and this is the difficult part, if they are really focused first and foremost on pushing viewership to NXT, then NXT is going to come out of Survivor Series looking absolutely tremendous. Whereas personally, I think they're going to be trying to push viewers more towards SmackDown.
Well, let's get now to the big Sunday show, Survivor Series itself. Obviously, this is highlighted, as I mentioned, a lot of triple threat matches. You've got 3 brands that are going to war for brand supremacy and bragging rights on this night. And I wanted to ask you before we get into the card, Survivor Series, since it's, induction into the Big 4 pay-per-view, traditionally it was always teams. First it was, teams of 5 strive to survive, and then we got more of the traditional 4-on-4, but it always people or guys that had angles with each other, usually the team captains of the 2 teams would have maybe an issue going on. And then when we got into the brand split of things, it became more of a, Raw versus SmackDown type of deal. And really that's what we've seen in the past couple years is it's always this brand warfare, Raw versus SmackDown. Obviously it got a probably needed injection of excitement with adding the NXT brand into this year's show. But do you think that moving forward that the luster of a brand versus brand show, which with all of the different mini drafts and redrafts and wildcard rules, we don't traditionally really see matches that we haven't necessarily seen before. Raw versus SmackDown to me is not as special as it once was because these guys get mingled in so much with each other with all the different brands and rosters and drafts and things that they do. And like I said, granted, I do think there is a added element of excitement because NXT is involved, so we are getting some matches that we've never seen before and we may never see again. But do you think that the NXT, adding them into the mix is maybe kind of the last hurrah for this brand versus brand idea for Survivor Series? And do you think that I guess, that motto or that slogan for the show has kind of lost its luster and that maybe going forward they should maybe look at going more towards personal issues and angles being resolved, in the Survivor Series format and keeping it more, Raw superstars against each other and SmackDown superstars instead of always leaning on the brand warfare gimmick for Survivor Series every November?
I definitely wouldn't call this the last hurrah. I think there is still a lot of life left in this concept. If you think back to 2016 when this new incarnation of the brand split was first announced, and what we had was a 50-minute 5-on-5 where you had Dean Ambrose and AJ Styles on one side alongside, I think it was Shane McMahon, Randy Orton, Bray Wyatt, and you had James Ellsworth under the ring holding onto Braun Strowman, and you had Seth Rollins whose hair had actually dried out by the end of the match. It was that long. And my God, does that man's hair jump up and bounce off his head. But there are so many fundamentally exciting ways to make this happen. The beginning of the launch of Bray Wyatt's championship reign happened in that match when he pinned Roman Reigns and everyone was shocked because Roman Reigns was pinned. There are so many things they can do with the format. They made The Miz versus Baron Corbin incredibly interesting the year after that. They had so many different ways of doing things. And if you remember, it gives us matches like Styles versus Lesnar. We had Bryan versus Lesnar. We could potentially have had The Fiend versus Lesnar, but I suspect that's just a match they were scared to give us because there would have to be a winner then, which means there would have to be a loser then. I think there's a lot of life left in this, but you hit the nail on the head very well when you mentioned that the problem isn't the format itself. I think the problem is how interconnected the brands are. When we were having 2 separate pay-per-views, a Raw pay-per-view and a SmackDown pay-per-view, separate from each other, Survivor Series in this manner was huge. When to go on shows and just join together, it lost a little bit of luster. But then you had Triple H appearing, and you weren't sure what brand he was on, but then, I'm on Raw now. Okay. And then you had him turning on Kurt Angle for some reason. And then you have the same on SmackDown, where you have people appearing. John Cena suddenly came out and declared for SmackDown, but he was a free agent. Things start to get confused. This year, more than anything, that is a problem because of the wild card, because we've only just had clear brand split separation. When it comes to the NXT edition, the main reason for that was to get eyes on Wednesday nights. It was a very late in the day decision, just to get people watching, to get eyes focused, and a little bit to give us something new and fresh. So Styles versus Nakamura becomes Styles versus Nakamura versus Strong. Becky versus Bayley, Becky versus Bayley versus Baszler. It adds that much more. The tag match, for example, is going to be very impressive now, whereas previously it would be War Raiders. Is it War Raiders? Viking Raiders? They call them Viking Raiders now, aren't they? Viking Raiders versus New Day. Viking Raiders are obviously going to win that match. So, and will probably still win the match, to be fair, but I digress. I think there is nothing wrong with the format. The issue is everything going on around it, and hopefully by this time next year, things that are firm now will still be firm and in place, and we won't really be worrying about this.
Well, let's talk about some of these unique matches that we're going to be getting on Sunday. We're going to start off with a bang with a match that I know you're excited about, and I'm excited about too. We've talked about it on the show before. U.S. Champion AJ Styles versus the Intercontinental Champion Shinsuke Nakamura versus the NXT North American Champion Roderick Strong. Really, I couldn't even care less who wins this match. I know we've talked about it a lot on the show, but I think this is just going to be just a really good match between these guys. I think this is the type of match like you're talking about that gets fans' attention and gets their eyeballs, because it's truly a match that we've never seen before, and it involves guys that I think people will be excited and interested to see in a match with one another. AJ Styles and Nakamura have history, and I think some people are still waiting for that really one great matchup between those two. And then you throw in a guy like Roderick Strong, who's obviously very talented and has been waiting for his kind of big break on the big stage for a while now. So I'm really looking forward to this match, and I know that you are too. I would love to see Nakamura get the win here, because I think it would do great for his character and for the Intercontinental title, and kind of help launch him maybe a little bit higher up the totem pole over on SmackDown. But if I had to put money on it, I think I'm going to go with kind of the old faithful here, the phenomenal AJ Styles. So I'm going to pick Styles to win this one, maybe with a little help from his friends in the club. How do you see this match going down? I know you're excited for it, but who do you see coming away as the winner?
Well, first off, just a little bit of clarification on the process here for people listening. We are recording this on Thursday night because we needed to know what was going on with NXT, but we are on a little bit of a time constraint, so we haven't been able to check in and know exactly what's happening on SmackDown beforehand. So if there has been any change to this match, in any shape or form, then I will be spending pretty much the entirety of Survivor Series curled up on my living room floor, eating ice cream and crying. So let's not do that, but if it has happened, just a bit of an update there. I think Roderick Strong is going to win this match. I think he definitely has the most to gain, even just from being in the ring with these two people, but we also know exactly what he can do, and he's going to be showcasing a lot. We've got 3 great sellers, 3 great innovative workers. This is going to be tremendous. And I'm with you. Quite a lot of the matches here, I don't really care who wins. And that is a wonderful place to be going into a pay-per-view. When you know you're going to be thoroughly entertained, you don't really care about the results, and ultimately, none of us care about brand supremacy. I know I feel a slight affiliation towards SmackDown, but I know a lot of people feel that affiliation towards NXT, but none of us really care about the supremacy, so it doesn't really matter to us who wins. I think Roderick Strong will win here. I think there is a possibility, because with triple threats there's no DQ, that we'll see the Undisputed Era, we'll see the Club, we'll see Sami Zayn and Cesaro. This could be an absolute mess, but hopefully that'll all be at the end, it'll all be going on the outside, and we can all forget that because actual action will be going on. I think Strong will win it, probably by pinning Nakamura, and I think that will set NXT up to go on and pretty much only win this match.
Well, let's move to our Tag Team Championship triple threat. The Raw Tag Team Champions, the Viking Raiders, will go up against the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, the New Day, and then against the NXT Tag Team Champions, the Undisputed Era. Like we said, the Undisputed Era, very busy this weekend. This match, I will say off the bat, I am... and this doesn't really have anything to do with the match, but I am a little bit disappointed to see on SmackDown that Kofi Kingston has been thrown immediately back into the tag team ranks with Big E. I get it that Xavier Woods got hurt. If he hadn't been hurt, I'm sure it would probably be him and Big E in this match representing the New Day as a tag team. But I really was a little bit disappointed that when he went down, they immediately went to... I mean, Kofi Kingston was WWE champion, just... 2 months ago, and now he's immediately thrown back into the tag team ranks with Big E. I thought it would have been an opportunity when Woods went down, instead of tagging Kofi with Big E, to maybe start a little bit of a singles push for Big E, because I think he definitely has the potential to be out on his own, and not on his own away from New Day, but just be pushed as his own entity and be pushed as a singles guy. But so I digress there. So a little bit disappointed to see Kofi in the tag team match, but nonetheless, I do think the Viking Raiders are going to be my pick here. They've been dominant on Raw. We've seen them kind of run over local talent the past couple weeks. Really haven't had much challengers for the championships over on Raw itself, so I think this is a match they could put them over big. They probably pick up the win over one of the members of the Undisputed Era to kind of keep the New Day strong. But I'm going to go with the Raw Tag Team Champions here in this one. What say you?
To your point on Kofi Kingston, there was definitely a plan for a long-term story in which he went back into the championship picture. That was going to play out over a long period. The injury to Xavier Woods may have changed that. However, there are still some subtle signs that it is ongoing. And I share your frustration on this one. I remember tweeting when he was still a champion, I believe it was during the Orton feud, that I was confident Kofi, upon losing the title, will go straight back into the tag title scene and will probably never again challenge for the World Championships. And I can't see him doing particularly well against The Fiend. But that does play into what I think will be the finish. I agree with you that the Viking Raiders will be winning the match. And I think it will be at the expense of Kofi Kingston taking the pin as we continue his sort of evisceration and the despair that comes with it, and slowly but surely losing things and losing his mind and realizing that he is furious about what happened with Brock and he needs to go out there and he needs to do something about it. I do think it'll be the Viking Raiders, and Kofi Kingston will be eating the pin for it.
All right, well, let's talk about the actual Survivor Series elimination tag matches. Again, triple threat rules here, and NXT is going to be involved, but in both the men's and women's matches, we don't exactly know who's going to be representing NXT in either of these matches. We have some ideas of probably who is likely, but we haven't had any official announcement. Again, like Tom said, we are recording on Thursday, so if there's some updates on Friday Night SmackDown, then obviously, those will be updates that'll be news to us. But as of our recording right now, Team NXT for both the men and women have not been formally announced. So let's talk about the women's side first. Team Raw is going to be represented by Charlotte Flair, Natalya, the Kabuki Warriors, and Sarah Logan. Team SmackDown, Sasha Banks, Carmella, Dana Brooke, Lacey Evans, and Nikki Cross. And then the yet-to-be-named Team NXT. My pick in this one, I think a little bit of a surprise pick. I think that in these elimination matches especially is a chance for maybe some underdogs or some surprise picks to occur. And so I'm going to go with Team SmackDown in this one. I think I would love to see Dana Brooke get a little bit of shine here. I think that she has improved a lot and has really kind of taken the opportunity on SmackDown and tried to grab the brass ring, as it was with her opportunities she's been given over there lately. Lacey Evans is someone else I think that SmackDown is probably going to be heavily invested in moving forward. And I think this would be a good match to get Sasha Banks kind of propelled back up the card in SmackDown. I look for her to be one of, if not the sole survivor, at least one of the few remaining survivors for Team SmackDown. Maybe her and Lacey Evans together, or maybe the two surviving members of SmackDown. So I'm going to take the blue brand in this one. How do you see this one working out?
When it comes to the NXT team, I expect it'll be very similar to the WarGames team the night before. We'll probably see Rhea Ripley in there, which would be very good for her long term. We'll probably see Io Shirai in there. But you are a very, very brave man to bet against a team that features Charlotte, Flair and Asuka. A very brave man. Because let's be honest, that team ain't losing. Charlotte, Flair and Asuka. Nah, mate. Raw for this one. Raw every day of the week. I think Sasha Banks is currently undergoing a bit of a down period, which she has been doing since she got back, but that will only sort of groundswell support behind her, and she's looking more and more likely for a Royal Rumble win. So I'm confident this will be a Raw victory. It could be a very interesting one, because I think we could well see Kairi Sane versus Io Shirai in the middle of this. We could see a bit more of Charlotte versus Sasha. It's a lot of little interesting possibilities in play. It'll be nice to see a renewal of the rivalry between Asuka and Carmella, which was never really a rivalry, but you'll see at some point Carmella is absolutely terrified of Asuka, and it is such an endearing character trait to see someone be so literally terrified of someone else. I'm looking forward to this one.
What do you think of Sarah Logan kind of being thrown into this match? We haven't seen her in forever, really, since Ruby Riott got hurt and the Riot Squad was kind of disbanded. She kind of just gets thrown into this match. Maybe it was just a case of just running low on choices over on Raw. But I would have thought, just based on the current state of things, that even someone like Zelina Vega may have been a name to put on Team Raw before I would have seen Sarah Logan getting thrown on there. So do you think that this could maybe be the start of, again, kind of like we talked about with Finn Balor, kind of rebranding her, kind of debuting her to the world, and maybe we'll start to see more of her on Raw post-Survivor Series?
Unfortunately, I don't think that's the intention, but it could be the result if she has a good showing. I may actually have a little bit of information on this. In my time in Manchester, I do recall a time when Kairi Sane came out of a lift nearby and Sarah Logan was sort of guiding her and helping her along. So I think it may actually be something as simple as that. The Kabuki Warriors will put together a page with the idea that it would help them with some of their English and their understanding, and that would help them when it comes to calling matches. Usually now we have the producers and we have everyone who will go through matches and rehearse things a bit more. Survivor Series is a very busy time. It's not necessarily that they would have had the time to lay things out like that and make sure they remember everything. Sarah Logan may be there to help out. I'm not saying she couldn't, as a result of this, make a good platform for herself, but I know she looks after Kairi Sane quite a bit. She spends quite a lot of time with Kairi and Asuka. I think that's the reason she's there.
Well, let's switch over to the men's side of things. You've got Team Raw represented by Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton, Drew McIntyre, and Ricochet, going up against Team SmackDown, which is Roman Reigns, King Corbin, Mustafa Ali, Shorty G, Chad Gable, and Braun Strowman. And then, of course, NXT, again, had not been formally announced who will make up that team. And if you thought I was going out on a limb with the last match, you're probably going to think I'm crazy with this one.
Oh, God.
I'm picking Team NXT in this match. And here's why. I think that if you really wanted to, obviously you can't have NXT lose every match here on this card. It is triple threat. So I think NXT is going to win at least one match. And if they're only going to win one, it would make sense that they win the biggest one of them all with winning the men's Survivor Series match. I think it gives them a huge rub no matter who is on that team. All those guys are going to get the rub from defeating both Raw and SmackDown. So they head over into Wednesday nights with bragging rights as they kind of fade back over into their own night and start doing their own thing. And I think it leads to an easy way to start some issues between the members of Team Raw and Team SmackDown on their own brand show. Maybe, Drew McIntyre blames Seth Rollins for the loss, and so you've got a feud there. Ricochet and Randy Orton, you've already seen some hints that maybe eventually they're going to have some issues or an angle down the line. Same thing with SmackDown. Maybe Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns start to have words about who should be the big dog on SmackDown or who was responsible for, the blue brand losing the match. Kevin Owens, we mentioned him earlier. Maybe he's a wild card. Maybe we see him turn on some of his Raw teammates and help the NXT side of things. Maybe he takes some of Triple H's words to heart, and so we have some issues there. So to me, I think Team NXT winning would be the most surprising result. And if they went about it the right way and told the story the right way, I think it would be the result that could lead to the most interesting and creative angles and stories going forward for all three brands involved. So my pick is for Team NXT to come out on top of this one. What do you think?
I think you are a little bit insane. Because this is probably the match where I think NXT has the least chance. Most of the men on the team undoubtedly will have been in WarGames the night before, and they're going to be absolutely knackered. Anyone else, maybe Finn Balor, will be on the team. He's going to be exhausted as well. You've got all that playing into it. But first and foremost, and probably the most important thing of all, you've got a team which features both Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman, and you are not betting on them. I can't help you. I mean, you're lost completely in that one. Braun Strowman, literally in any match where there is a possibility of elimination, Braun Strowman eliminates everyone. That's what he does. He did it last year, he did it the year before, he did it in the Elimination Chamber. He'll be doing it in Rumbles for years to come. Braun Strowman eliminates people. That's just what he does. Then you've got Roman Reigns. The only person who can stop Braun Strowman is Roman Reigns, and they're on the same team. This is SmackDown through and through, and this has got to be SmackDown through and through. I do agree with you that NXT will win one, but I think it'll be the opener with Roderick Strong. This one, I don't think they have a chance in hell.
I'll tell you what, you talk about Braun Strowman, you know what else Braun Strowman doesn't do? Win big matches. He's, 0 for 7 in title matches, so I'm not banking on him to win this one either. So
that's when Brock Lesnar's involved. The rules are different.
Well, call me crazy. I like to live on the edge a little bit, so call me crazy. I said I'm gonna stick to my guns on this one, and at least we're not agreeing on every match. Usually, so I mean, right. It makes for an interesting show if nothing else, right?
Yeah, with our wonderful host Korey, stick to his guns.
That's right. There's another T-shirt. We've got sultry, and now we've got stick to his gun. I like it. Well, let's move to the women's triple threat now. Becky Lynch, Bayley, Shayna Baszler. If you're a fan of the women's division, this has got to be a dream scenario, a dream match for a lot of fans to see these three in the ring and going at it in a triple threat. I'm going to take Becky Lynch in this one, and I've got a feeling I know who you're going to pick and kind of where the story is leading. Maybe one of these girls is probably maybe the more obvious choice, but because of that, because it does seem a little bit obvious, I'm going to take Becky Lynch in this one. They push her hard as the true leader of the women's division and give her the win here. But I've got a feeling that you're probably going to disagree with me on this one too.
Absolutely, I am. But this is much less of a you're insane situation. This is much more of a, this is a personal choice. I think Bayley is going to come out the winner here, which sort of ends the night with NXT 1, Raw 2, SmackDown 2. Quite a fair overall system there. When it comes to this match, everyone is focusing on Becky Lynch versus Shayna Baszler. Even Becky Lynch and Shayna Baszler are focusing on Becky Lynch and Shayna Baszler. But Bayley has quietly been making herself the most relevant she has ever been. And let's not forget, she has Sasha Banks in her corner. Now everyone has someone in her corner. And funnily enough, this is very much everyone has some horsewomen in their corner. I know a lot of people are excited about the idea that Ronda Rousey might appear, but I don't personally see that. I think this is going to be one of those moments where Bayley pins Becky via sort of roll-up, or just a Bayley to belly. Is that what she calls it now? Bayley. She's got a new move, hasn't she? Without a name so far. But I can definitely see Bayley coming out the winner. I don't think Shayna Baszler will be involved in the fall. I think she'll be sort of protected in that manner. But Bayley has really the most heat behind her right now for her storyline. Baszler has heat because she's Baszler. Becky has heat because she's Becky. Bayley has the storyline. She has the character change. That's what's making it work for me. And I think it's the best story to tell.
Let me kind of play devil's advocate here with you then. Like I said, I'm picking Bayley Lynch, and almost because, just like you said, especially if Baszler's not involved in the pinfall or involved in the decision. So let's say Bayley wins. That means Bayley has to pin Becky Lynch. And Becky Lynch is obviously being pushed as leader of the women's division. Some people might argue that she may even be more over than some of her male counterparts at this stage. So if Bayley pins Becky, doesn't that somewhat hurt Becky as far as her character, especially with the fact that because of the brand split, Becky's not going to have a chance for retribution? You know, she's not going to be able to come after Bayley. She's not going to be able to get that win back. Baszler's going to go on back to NXT. We're probably not going to see, her back on Raw or SmackDown, at least for the immediate future. Maybe in a couple months, maybe around, WrestleMania season, maybe she comes back to stay. So that would be my only caveat to this, is that if Bayley wins, or really if anybody other than Becky Lynch wins, is how do you kind of get that win back for that character, unless Bayley pins Baszler and you don't have Becky Lynch involved in the decision at all. But I just don't see that happening either, but just because of the way that Baszler's character has been presented. So I'm not saying that it couldn't happen, but to me it would be a little bit confusing or maybe a little bit deflating to those characters to see Bayley get the win if there's not going to be some type of blow-off or continuation of this feud. And like you said, if they want to keep the brand split firm, they want to keep these rosters firm, once Survivor Series is over, we're not going to see these people mix and mingle anymore going forward.
The trick isn't so much about how do you keep them from losing heat. It's how do you get the heat back afterwards. There's a few perfect examples of this. It tends to be Rollins went on a bit of a losing streak right before he won the Royal Rumble. There's a perfect example. Drew McIntyre may have lost his match with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, but the next night he came out and he was involved in something again. The amount of times you'll see someone who's about to change brand lose a big match. For example, Charlotte Flair, before moving to SmackDown, lost to Nia Jax. Nobody remembers that because they remember the move, and just like that, the heat is back. When it comes to Becky, I'll ask you a question. When's the last time you can remember Becky Lynch taking the pin?
When she lost to Asuka, I guess.
So in January?
Yeah.
At the Royal Rumble. Okay, it happened 2 weeks ago in Manchester. It happened, I think it was 3 weeks before that, both times to Kairi Sane. Nobody remembers that because they know that going into this Survivor Series match, she's hot. She was rolled up by Kairi Sane in Manchester 2 weeks ago in a tag team match with Charlotte and with Asuka there, where she was distracted by Baszler on the outside. So it's not a clean loss, people don't remember it. Even though it was a very clean loss.
No, that's true, yeah. I was thinking more like her pay-per-view matches or title defenses, but I definitely...
Well, that's the thing. People focus more on those sort of big events.
Right.
So admittedly, while a loss here could potentially impact, it depends what happens the next night on Raw. Who's she going to walk into a feud with? Probably Asuka. I'm excited for that match. Heat straight back. I think she can afford that. And she's in a position now on the card where she can afford to take a few losses. And to be fair, taking a few losses make people care about you a bit more, and the crowd are starting to turn against her now. They've not really gone, but they're starting. So she can afford to take a few losses, look a bit more vulnerable. That'll keep the support behind her.
Yeah, definitely be interesting to see where they go with this one. Like I said, a lot of different options and ways they could go about this thing. Let's move now to the two championship matches on the men's side on the card. We'll start with the WWE Championship match. Brock Lesnar goes up against Rey Mysterio. No holds barred, no disqualification match, which to me means that Rey Mysterio is going to be taking a lot of bumps, a lot of punishment, and this may even be the last match we ever see Rey Mysterio in, because if he just plays ragdoll for Brock Lesnar, and we know that Rey Mysterio isn't necessarily a spring chicken anymore. This is the type of combination that works best for Brock, is when he has a smaller guy that will bump around and fly around for him and make those German suplexes and those power moves look especially punishing. So I think it will be an entertaining match. I think Brock Lesnar is the obvious pick here. I think he's going to retain. To me, the interesting thing will be to see if Cain Velasquez gets involved in some way here, then where they move forward with that. But I think the clear pick as far as the winner of the match is obviously going to be Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, with the championship matches, we can pretty much fly through them because we can be confident. The match should play out fairly simply. Rey Mysterio will get ragdolled. He'll find a weapon, fight back a little bit, get ragdolled a bit more, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. I think we will see Cain Velasquez. I think that's what the format's really set up for, because they want to get back to that feud, but obviously Velasquez had to recover a little bit. He's still training and preparing, so I think we will see that match again as time goes on. I think that's the end result, and when you look at this match was sort of an emergency situation because they can't do Lesnar versus The Fiend. But no matter what happens, we can pretty much guarantee Brock Lesnar will be walking out with the championship.
And then finally, let's talk about the Universal Championship match. You've got the Universal Champion, The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, with that terrible new Universal Championship belt that I can't believe that they turned blue. He'll be bringing that god-awful belt with him to the ring to defend it against Daniel Bryan. Again, I'm like you. I think the winner of this match is pretty easy to call. I think The Fiend obviously retains here. But to me, the interesting point is, how does he go about it? Does he get a clean win over Daniel Bryan? Do we maybe see a disqualification finish where either guy maybe kind of goes off the edge? Maybe, The Fiend just goes to town and gets disqualified for punishing Daniel Bryan. Or maybe we see Daniel Bryan finally snap mentally and maybe he introduces a chair or some weapons to the match and gets disqualified, and we see a continuation of this feud. So, to me, I think one way or another, Bray Wyatt obviously walks out still your Universal Champion, but I do think it'll be interesting to see how they go about it and where they go from here, if this is a feud that is going to continue, or if this is just maybe a one-off to kind of get Daniel Bryan back into the limelight. And I'll be honest, and we can maybe discuss this. This may be more of a discussion point than the match itself. I'm still not 100% convinced of where Daniel Bryan exactly stands. Are they presenting him as a face? Is it supposed to be his face turn? Because to me, he's still at best a tweener. Just some of his promos he's given and things, and the way that he doesn't want to go back to the Yes Movement. So maybe this is the beginning of a full-fledged face turn where he does finally embrace the Yes Movement. But I think that's an interesting layer to this too, because I don't really see this as clear-cut face Daniel Bryan against heel Bray Wyatt. And some people maybe even argue that it's flip-flop, that maybe Bray Wyatt is the face going into this match. So I got a feeling that Bray Wyatt is going to be your pick here to retain. But what's your thoughts as far as how this match has been built, how this feud has been built, and maybe where we go from here?
Okay, you've asked me like 6 questions.
I know, so I get excited.
Firstly, as regards the new championship belt, I hope to God they don't use the red light, because imagine that blue belt underneath the red light. That's just going to look ridiculous. But they're going to use the red light because obviously that's what they do with Bray Wyatt. When it comes to the actual match, I suspect it'll play out exactly the same as it did with Seth Rollins. Daniel Bryan will hit The Fiend with everything he's got, and then The Fiend will win the match. It'll be just like that. Unfortunately, we still have the problem whereby when The Fiend steps into the ropes, it's just not that exciting. And it's just not. I think they'll do everything possible to avoid a DQ finish. It's The Fiend. They can't afford to keep doing that. I'm sure they can have a fight afterwards. We'll see what happens, but this should be clear, cut and dry. Daniel Bryan attacks, Daniel Bryan attacks, Daniel Bryan attacks, Bray Wyatt pins him, and that's that. It should be that simple. When you ask me about where is Daniel Bryan on the scale, the move to a face turn has already started. It started when he shook hands with Roman Reigns. They're now doing the will he, won't he, is he going to come back to the yes movement. That storyline is ongoing independently from this. The feud with Shinsuke Nakamura continues with that. Sami Zayn will be a major part of that. It's already started when they say trying to encourage him to the sort of faction that Sami Zayn is building, which I like and I like to see. I think that will be the feud with Daniel Bryan going forward. We'll see a few Daniel Bryan versus Cesaro matches, and then probably it'll be against Nakamura at WrestleMania or closer to that time. Daniel Bryan has no chance here, but he's not meant to. It was a last-minute match, thrown together last minute. They just wanted to give The Fiend a good opponent who he could win and still look good, so it wasn't a squash. The storyline that Bryan already has will continue after this. The match will pretty much just be forgotten. There will a lot of matches on this card.
Will definitely be an interesting weekend no matter what happens between NXT TakeOver and Survivor Series. Make sure you guys check it out on WWE Network, and I'm sure next week right here on the podcast we'll be giving you all of our reactions to the show, the fallout on Raw and NXT, and I'm sure Tom will have a bunch of news and notes and things to talk about as we head post-Survivor Series and then start our road to Royal Rumble, and before you know it, we'll be on the road to WrestleMania. So we hope that you all stick with us here on Dropkick DiSKussions podcast. Make sure that you check out Tom on Twitter at Colohue. If you would like to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Korey Gunz. Make sure you check out Tom's reporting on Sportskeeda.com, and make sure that you like and subscribe to the Sportskeeda YouTube channel so that every time we post a new podcast with Tom and myself, you get notifications. And we've got something I think that's going to be really cool and really interesting coming up here in probably the next couple of weeks with myself and another talent from Sportskeeda. I don't want to talk too much about it because details are still being worked out, but when it does come down the pike, I think fans are going to be really interested and really excited about what we've got coming up next over on the Sportskeeda YouTube channel and with Dropkick DiSKussions. So stay tuned for that. I want to thank Tom again for joining me tonight and running down the Survivor Series and NXT cards. And we will be here next week to talk about everything that went down this weekend. And we hope you guys will join us again too, right here on Dropkick DiSKussions, presented by Sportskeeda. We'll see you guys next time.